Welcome back to Loving with BPD, beautiful souls. I'm so grateful you've chosen to spend this time with me today. If you're new here, this is a safe space where we explore the complexities of borderline personality disorder with compassion, understanding, and hope. Whether you're living with BPD, loving someone who is, or simply seeking to understand this often misunderstood condition, you belong here. Today we're diving deep into something that touches the very core of our existence. Our relationships and the emotional storms that BPD can bring into them. Before we begin, I want you to take a moment to breathe with me. In and out. You are safe here. You are seen here. And your story matters. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell if this content resonates with you. Your support helps me continue creating these vulnerable conversations that we so desperately need. Now let's begin this journey together. Picture this. You wake up in the morning, and your emotional world feels like a weather system that changes without warning. One moment, the sun is shining, and you feel capable of conquering the world. The next, storm clouds gather so quickly that you're left wondering if you imagined that sunshine at all. This is the reality for millions of people living with borderline personality disorder. BPD isn't just being emotional or dramatic. It's a complex mental health condition that affects how we experience ourselves, others, and the world around us. At its core, BPD is characterized by intense emotional experiences, unstable relationships, and a profound fear of abandonment that can feel like it's carved into our very souls. When we talk about emotional instability in BPD, we're not talking about occasional mood swings that everyone experiences. We're talking about emotions that feel like tsunamis in a teacup, overwhelming, consuming, and often disproportionate to the situation at hand. These aren't character flaws or choices. They're symptoms of a brain that processes emotional information differently. For those of us with BPD, emotions aren't just felt, they're experienced with our entire being. Joy can feel like euphoria, sadness like devastation, and anger like a fire that threatens to consume everything in its path. This intensity isn't something we choose. It's how our nervous system has learned to respond to the world, often as a result of early trauma or invalidating environments. Now let's talk about relationships, the very thing we crave most and fear losing the most. If you have BPD or love someone who does, you know this paradox intimately. We desperately want connection, yet our behaviors often push people away. We love deeply, yet we struggle with the very intimacy we seek. Imagine being desperately thirsty and simultaneously afraid that the water might be poisoned. This is what relationships can feel like with BPD. We approach them with our hearts wide open, ready to pour all of ourselves into another person, but our minds are simultaneously scanning for signs of rejection, abandonment, or betrayal. This creates what psychologists call approach avoidance conflict. We move toward someone we care about, but when they get too close, our fear systems activate. We might pick fights, test boundaries, or even sabotage the relationship. Not because we want to, but because the fear of being abandoned feels so overwhelming that leaving first feels safer. The truth is, those of us with BPD often love with an intensity that can feel frightening to others. We feel everything so deeply that when we care about someone, they become our entire world. This isn't healthy attachment. It's often a trauma response where we try to fill a void that was created long before this person entered our lives. Let me share something with you that might feel familiar. You're having a conversation with someone you love, and they say something that triggers an old wound. Maybe it's the tone of their voice, maybe it's a word they chose, or maybe it's something they didn't say at all. Suddenly, you're not in the present moment anymore. You're back in every moment you've ever felt rejected, dismissed, or abandoned. This is emotional dysregulation, and it's one of the most challenging aspects of BPD. When we're dysregulated, our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for rational thinking, goes offline. We're operating from our amygdala, our alarm system, which only knows fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. In this state, we might say things we don't mean, make threats we don't intend to follow through on, or engage in behaviors that we later regret. We might explode in anger or implode in despair. We might cling desperately or push away violently. These responses aren't manipulative or attention-seeking. They're survival mechanisms from a nervous system that perceives threat where others might see minor disagreements. The person we're in relationship with might be confused, hurt, or frustrated. They might wonder where this reaction came from, why we're overreacting, or how a simple conversation turned into such chaos. They can't see the internal storm that their words or actions triggered, the cascade of memories and fears that flooded our system in an instant. At the heart of most BPD experiences lies a wound so deep that it shapes how we see ourselves and others. It's the abandonment wound, the terror that everyone we love will eventually leave us. This isn't a rational fear based on current evidence. It's a primal terror that lives in our bones. This wound might have been created by actual abandonment, parents who left, caregivers who were inconsistent, or loved ones who couldn't provide the stability we needed. But it can also be created by emotional abandonment, being physically present but emotionally unavailable parents, invalidating environments where our feelings were dismissed, or traumatic experiences that left us feeling alone and unsupported. When we carry this wound into adult relationships, it colors everything. A partner being 10 minutes late becomes evidence that they don't care. A friend not texting back immediately means they're pulling away. A loved one needing space feels like the beginning of the end. We might find ourselves constantly seeking reassurance, asking, "Do you still love me?" multiple times a day. We might interpret neutral expressions as signs of anger or disappointment. We might create tests and scenarios to prove that people care about us, often creating the very abandonment we're trying to prevent. One of the most painful aspects of BPD is the struggle with identity. Not knowing who we are or having a sense of self that shifts like sand. In relationships, this can manifest as becoming whoever we think the other person wants us to be. We might mirror their interests, adopt their opinions, or suppress parts of ourselves that we fear they won't accept. This isn't deception. It's often an unconscious survival strategy. If we don't have a solid sense of who we are, we grab onto others' identities like life rafts in a storm. We become chameleons, shapeshifters, always trying to be the perfect partner, friend, or family member. But this creates a devastating cycle. The more we lose ourselves in others, the emptier we feel. The emptier we feel, the more desperately we cling to relationships for our sense of worth and identity. And the more we cling, the more likely we are to engage in the very behaviors that push people away. We might find ourselves saying yes when we mean no, agreeing when we disagree, or staying silent when we need to speak up. We might change our appearance, our goals, or our values to match what we think others want from us. In doing so, we lose touch with our authentic selves, if we ever knew who that was to begin with. There's a defense mechanism common in BPD called splitting or black and white thinking. When we're overwhelmed, our brains simplify complex realities into absolutes. People are either all good or all bad. Situations are either perfect or disasters. There's no middle ground, no gray area. No room for the messy complexity that defines most human experiences. In relationships, this might look like idealizing someone one day and demonizing them the next. The person we called our soulmate yesterday becomes toxic today. The relationship we described as perfect becomes unbearable. This isn't fickleness or manipulation. It's a trauma response that helped us navigate unpredictable environments in our past. When someone we love disappoints us or hurts us, our wounded system can't hold both truths simultaneously. That they can love us and hurt us, that they can be good people and make mistakes, that relationships can be valuable and imperfect. So we split them into categories. Savior or destroyer, angel or demon, everything or nothing. This creates chaos in our relationships because the other person never knows which version of themselves they'll encounter in our minds. They might walk on eggshells, trying to avoid triggering our negative perception of them, or they might give up entirely, exhausted by the emotional whiplash. Now, after painting this picture of struggle and pain, I want to shift into hope. Because here's what I want you to know. BPD is not a life sentence of chaos and broken relationships. It's a starting point for one of the most profound healing journeys you'll ever undertake. Healing with BPD isn't about becoming normal or suppressing your emotions. It's about learning to ride the waves instead of being crushed by them. It's about developing skills to navigate the intensity without being consumed by it. It's about creating relationships that can hold your fullness without breaking. The first step in this journey is often therapy, particularly modalities designed specifically for BPD like dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, which teaches practical skills for emotional regulation, distress tolerance, interpersonal effectiveness, and mindfulness. These aren't just coping mechanisms. They're life skills that can transform how you experience yourself and others. But therapy is just one piece of the puzzle. Healing happens in relationship, with therapists, friends, family members, and partners who can see your struggle with compassion rather than judgment. It happens when you learn to speak your truth without fear of abandonment, to set boundaries without guilt, to ask for what you need without shame. As you begin to heal, your relationships will begin to transform. This doesn't happen overnight, and it's rarely a linear process. There will be setbacks, moments when old patterns resurface, times when you wonder if change is really possible. This is normal and expected. Healing trauma isn't a destination. It's an ongoing journey. Learning to communicate your needs clearly becomes crucial. Instead of expecting others to read your mind or interpret your behaviors, you begin to use your words. Instead of testing people's love through drama, you learn to ask for reassurance directly. Instead of pushing people away when you're scared, you learn to say, "I'm feeling afraid of being abandoned right now, and I need some comfort." This kind of vulnerable communication feels terrifying at first. You might fear that being direct about your needs will push people away. But the opposite is often true. People generally respond better to honesty than to the confusion that comes from hidden needs and indirect communication. You also learn to take responsibility for your emotional experience without taking responsibility for others. You begin to understand that your feelings are valid even when your reactions are disproportionate. You learn that you can acknowledge the impact of your behavior on others while still having compassion for the pain that drove that behavior. One of the most beautiful aspects of healing from BPD is learning what secure attachment feels like. Many of us never experienced this as children, so we have to learn it as adults. Secure attachment means feeling safe to be yourself in relationship, knowing that love doesn't depend on perfection, and trusting that conflict doesn't mean the end of connection. In secure relationships, you learn that people can be upset with you and still love you. You discover that you can have needs and express them without being burdensome. You realize that healthy relationships have rhythms, times of closeness and times of space, moments of harmony and moments of discord, and all of these are normal and necessary. You begin to attract different kinds of relationships too. As you heal, you become less willing to accept treatment that triggers your trauma responses. You set boundaries around behaviors that feel unsafe. You choose people who can meet your emotional intensity with stability rather than reactivity. This doesn't mean your relationships become conflict-free or that your BPD symptoms disappear entirely. It means you develop tools to navigate challenges without destroying the connection. You learn to repair after ruptures, to apologize without losing yourself, to forgive without forgetting important lessons. Perhaps the most radical part of healing with BPD is learning to have compassion for yourself. All of yourself, including the parts that have caused pain to others and to yourself. This isn't about excusing harmful behavior or avoiding accountability. It's about understanding that you did the best you could with the tools you had at the time. You begin to see your symptoms not as character defects but as adaptations to difficult circumstances. Your emotional intensity becomes a superpower when channeled correctly. It allows you to feel deeply, love fully, and create meaningful change in the world. Your sensitivity becomes a gift that helps you understand and support others who are struggling. Integration means holding all parts of your story with tenderness. The wounded child who needed more than they received. The adolescent who struggled to find their identity. The young adult who made mistakes while trying to figure out love. The person you are now, doing the hard work of healing. All of these versions of you deserve compassion. You learn that having BPD doesn't make you broken or unlovable. It makes you human, struggling with very human wounds in very human ways. Your journey toward healing becomes not just about fixing yourself but about reclaiming your wholeness, your worthiness, your right to love and be loved exactly as you are. Beautiful souls, we've traveled a long road together today. We've explored the landscape of BPD, the challenges it brings to relationships, and the profound healing that's possible when we approach this condition with understanding and compassion. If you're living with BPD, I want you to know that your struggle is real, your pain is valid, and your healing is possible. You're not too much. You are not broken beyond repair. You are a human being worthy of love, connection, and all the beautiful things this life has to offer. If you're loving someone with BPD, thank you for being here, for seeking to understand rather than judge. Your compassion and patience can be healing forces in their journey. Remember to take care of yourself too. Loving someone with BPD requires its own kind of strength and support. For all of us touched by BPD in any way, remember that knowledge is power, understanding is healing, and community is medicine. You don't have to walk this path alone. If this video resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Subscribe to Loving with BPD for more content that honors the complexity of living with and loving through borderline personality disorder. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our conversations. In the comments below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of this journey felt most familiar to you? What gave you hope? What would you like me to explore in future videos? Your stories and insights help build the community we all need. Until next time, remember, you are loved, you are worthy, and your healing matters. Keep going, beautiful souls. Keep going.